Good morning, everyone. Thanks for all the messages and all the requests. So I know I promised I would be answering another question this week, and I got so many good ones, but the one that I decided to answer was, what should I do if the job that I have in the military isn't available in the corporate sector and I don't know where I fit, or the jobs that I've been applying to I don't seem to be qualified for. So it is completely okay. I feel like a lot of people don't know what they want to be when they grow up, and that happens a lot too when just to regular people who are not transitioning from the military. And when I was a manager at Facebook, I came up with this exercise that I did with my team that helped them, and then ever since I've done it with a few other veterans. So I want to talk about it with you today. And before we get started though, I think one of the things that's going to help you if you don't already have it is that LinkedIn does offer a free premium membership to veterans and military spouses. So I'm going to put the link to that in the first comment after this post. So if you haven't signed up, I would highly recommend it. So the way that the exercise works is that you decide what industry you're interested in. So whether that's tech or biopharma, defense, you kind of get the idea. So for the purpose of me explaining it, I am going to pick tech. So the idea is that you would pick 10 to 15 companies in that space that you'd be interested in working with. So let's say for tech it would be Google, Amazon, Facebook, Lyft, Uber, Twitter. You get the idea. And then what I want you to do is I want you to start looking at the jobs, but I do not want you to look at the next job. I don't want you to think about the immediate future. I want you to think long term. So look at the jobs and say, which job would be amazing? That would be a dream come true one day. So I want you to think really big. So if you were your own best friend, what would you want for yourself? Very, very, very long term. And don't hold back. The purpose is to kind of imagine your best self, okay? So let's say you pick something, so you're gonna print out all of those jobs, and then whether you print them out or you save them, and then you're going to catalog them, and you're gonna go through the requirements very, very carefully, and you're gonna try to figure out if there are any patterns. So you wanna see, is there a desire for you to have an MBA, an international MBA? Is there a focus on having an expatriate assignment? Is there a need for coding language fluency? Is there a need for a second language fluency? Is there a need for you to manage very large teams or have had that experience? And hopefully you're gonna start to see some patterns surface. And those are gonna be some directional azimuths on what you long-term can focus on. So for instance, if you notice that it consistently says that you need an MBA, that might be a trigger for you to realize that maybe entering the workforce right away might not be the best path. You might wanna think about your school options and using the GI Bill. Those are then some of the conversations that you can do as you assess. So then the next step, so step 2, is that you now, once you found, let's say you picked, a director of finance position at a big tech company. Let's say you picked the Google one, you saw that was posted. So now you're gonna go to the other companies on the list, and you're going to look up and see who is the person. You can use LinkedIn or whatever other medium you want that has the director of finance position at Amazon, at Uber, at LinkedIn, at Microsoft, etc. And then you're gonna go back and you're gonna look at their career path. And the idea is more a desire path. So I think it's a term that you probably are familiar with from architecture, but the idea is, I think it was the Oregon experiment, that when they are building a campus, they could either build the campus and then they could predict, right, where the sidewalks might be, or they could build the campus and wait and see where people walk and where those desire paths are, and then they could put the sidewalks there. And it's the same idea, is that you are going to see where other people walked, and then you're going to try to craft your path in a similar way. So now you're gonna go and look at, okay, who has the director of finance position? What was their first, their second, their third, their fourth job? And start to see if you can identify any patterns. So for instance, did they start in the finance sector and then pivot to the tech sector? Did they maybe start in consulting? Then along the way, they pivoted to a more specific role in finance. So once you start to identify, are there any patterns, and you start to see maybe the first and second job, let's say, you start to notice a trend that it was in the banking industry. Well, then those jobs, that specific first, second, and third job, you can start looking up those jobs at various companies and seeing if you're a good match for their skill set. The third thing that you can do is that when you identify that first, second, and third job that those senior leaders had in their career, you might be able to search and find who's actually in that job right now. And don't hesitate. It takes a little courage, but that's the purpose, especially on LinkedIn, is to grow your network. So you can reach out to them and maybe ask if they'd be willing to have a quick chat with you. And the idea is that you can ask them questions, why do you like this job? What is it that you don't like about this job? You might even be able to find a military veteran that's in that position now. So the idea is that you'll be able to grow your network outside of folks that are in the military space that might be in industries that can lead to the long-term goal that you have. So the idea is not necessarily to try to find the next job. It's more about how can you figure out the dream and then back and reverse engineer the dream to get there. So just to wrap it up, the first step is making a list in an industry and figuring out what the dream is, not the next job. The second is looking up other people who have accomplished the dream. I think we all love reading memoirs and biographies, and figuring out what is the desired path to get there. And then the third is looking up that first, second, and third job that those leaders had and figuring out if you could be a good fit for your next fit, and maybe expanding your network by trying to reach out to somebody who's in that position. So happy Friday, friends, and I look forward to seeing you next week.